We are live. Welcome, peeps. H Precourt here with this week's Peak Performance Mastery. Great to be here with you. Hopefully, you guys had an amazingly awesome last week. Happy 4th of July week. I know some of you took a little time off, which is awesome. We're back at it, going hard. So, today, we're going to challenge our positioning in this and kind of figure out what type of person we really are as it relates to these two categories and producing results, right? This is a conversation that oftentimes people automatically default to believe that it's a very binary, kind of like you're one or the other one. In fact, it doesn't work that way, right? We're a little of everything, and it's up to us to figure out where we are in the different categories of our life. Like where do you sit in relationship to your health and fitness? Where do you sit in regards to your business and your finances, your interpersonal relationships, your extended relationships, like your networking, so forth, right? And oftentimes what we find is we'll have one or two that are really, really good and some that are not so good. And we're like, well, why? What's the difference? And that's what I want to share with you today, right? Because we can make them all awesome. And it's hard to thrive, genuinely thrive at the best you're capable of thriving at in any area of your life when other areas are dragging you down. So the conversation today is around, do we live an intentional life? Meaning, do we act on intention? Or a circumstantial life where we let the circumstances dictate to us our actions, our behaviors, right? Do you let a poor night's sleep dictate what time you get up in the morning? Do you let a social gathering where maybe everybody's drinking lots of booze determine how much you drink? Do you let travel affect your diet? Follow me on this? Do you let your emotions from the day, that built up energy, maybe your day didn't go well at work, do you let that affect your relationship when you get home? All of those are living a life of circumstances, meaning we're letting the circumstances of our life dictate how we experience our life. And when we let our circumstances take control, it is impossible to succeed. Pick any area of your life you want: health, wealth, finances, impact, whatever you want. And if we don't do it in an intentional way, which I'm going to get to in a moment, if we don't do it in an intentional way, we can't succeed in those areas of our life. Our lives are too complicated. There's too many influences. Now, remember, we'll take a step back here, right? Just to refresh some of us who may have forgot a couple of these basics here, right? You ask an informal question. Would you agree that the way you feel affects the way you think? Yes or no? Serious question. Do you think the way you feel affects the way you think? Simple yes, no question. Does the way you feel affect your thinking? And the answer is yeah. Yeah, it does. Okay, that's interesting. Good. Does the way you think affect your decision making? It's kind of an interesting question when you ask it that way because it's so damn obvious. And the answer is yeah, of course it does. Your thinking is responsible for your decision making. Your decision making, your actions, and your actions create your results. Wayne, thanks for checking in, brother. Right? So now the way we feel is tied to the way we experience life, the results we get. What if somebody makes you feel something not conducive to the outcomes you want? Example, has anybody ever pissed you off, made you angry, upset you, intimidated you, offended you, ever? And the truth is, few of us can get through an entire day without that happening multiple times. And if we now that's just a circumstance. That other human that interacted with you, or that email you read, or that news report you saw, right? That fired you up. That's just a circumstance. And if we let that determine how we feel, decision-making, action-taking, results, we're living a life of circumstances. Have you ever gotten up out of bed first thing in the morning and just felt like shit? Pissed off. You don't even know why you're pissed off. Well, if you let that feeling, that circumstance continue, guess what? You're not going to do the hard work you know you got to do today. You're not going to do the tough stuff. You ever get home at the end of the day? You had a really long day, emotional day, spent a lot of emotional currency. So first thing you go for, man, it's just a quick drink, just to take the edge off. You're living a life of circumstances. You're not living an intentional life. Now, Lisa, you and I talked about this a bit earlier today, right? What does living an intentional life look like? This is an important part, okay? Now, I'm saying you and I talked about this stuff that I'm about to talk about. What does living an intentional life look like? Living an intentional life means getting crystal clear first on the outcomes that you want. We'll call them the results, right? And you should be doing this every day. We should be guided by the week. We should be guided by the outcomes of the month. We should be guided by the outcomes of the year or the quarter, right? They should have high levels. They all break down. Eventually, here we are, day, right? And once we're clear on the outcome, the result, now we can orchestrate, we can engineer the behaviors necessary to produce those results and stop worrying about the damn results. We've heard all the time, like, you got to focus on the end. You got to, keep your eye on the ball and focus on the results. And that's quite frankly, it's bullshit. Okay. Not how it works. Not when it comes down to application each day. We need the end result as a way to point the bow of our boat. We need to know where we're going. But now we got to pay attention each and every turn to get around the shoals and the islands and the rocks, or we're going to crash and burn along the way. Okay. Because there ain't a straight line between here and there. Do you realize that? Whatever it is you want, there is not a straight trajectory to get there. There's lots of shit that comes up along the way. And that's why we orchestrate, we engineer a plan. And then that plan breaks down to behavior, daily behaviors. And that's what we focus on. When we measure our success at the end of the day, we measure it based on, did we execute the behaviors to produce the results that we're trying to get? Don't worry about the results. See, we can't control the results, but we can control the behavior that produces those results. Now that we have this list of behaviors that we're going to track and monitor and keep an eye on, right? We know that those exact behaviors produce that exact result. And that exact result is what we want, right? Now we switch gears over to, all right, are we operating intentionally, or are we letting our circumstances dictate how far we can go, what we can do? Are we letting other people interrupt the process? Are we letting the weather affect our plans? Are we letting our dog, who woke us up in the middle of the night, who then kept us up all night, affect the fact that we didn't go to the gym this morning or not, right? Do circumstances control you, or do you control them? Now, it's kind of a trick question because we can't control all of our circumstances, but we can control the effect of every circumstance on us. That we can control. I use this analogy all the time about, showing up on time at the gym. Our trainers had to be there by 20 after 5 a.m. in the morning, every morning, no matter what, because people are showing up at 5:30. Okay? That's just how it is. We didn't have an inclement weather plan. It was, the gym will be open for you. Trainer doesn't show up one time and calls it, Pat, I can't get to work on time this morning. I'm saying, why not? Well, it's snowing out. It's not safe for me to drive. He is letting his life be dictated by circumstances. Now, we can't change the weather, admittedly. However, we can prepare for the weather and diminish or reduce or eliminate the effect of the weather on us. In other words, have a backup plan. It's in the middle of the winter in New England where it's cold as shit and it precipitates. Yeah, it's going to snow. This was no surprise. You don't need a weather forecaster to forecast that it's going to snow sometime this winter. Get a freaking car that can handle it. Have a car you could borrow, or have a driver come pick you up. But it's your responsibility to show up, because guess what? Our clients are. And our clients are intentional. They're intentional as shit. And now you, the trainer, are going to show up 2 hours late claiming weather? See how bullshit that is? How many areas of your life do you let circumstances control you? So take this for what it is and don't get offended by it. And there's always an exception to the rule. I get all that shit, okay? But I'll still say what I'm going to say, right? There is no, I'll just pick on males for now. There's no male walking the face of this earth that chooses to be fat. No male, period. There's no human that chooses to be broke, right? No human. And if those are the cases, let's stick with the male being fat. And this isn't, I'm not throwing shade here. I'm making a point, because it's important that we take this kind of responsibility. And the higher level of responsibility we take, the more in power and control we are, right? Not throwing shade. This comes from a position of love. Just know that, right? But there's no guy that chooses to be soft. But he certainly deserves to be soft. You say, well, that's not very kind of you, Pat. You just said you came from love. Well, sometimes love is tough love, and it goes like this. Now, apply this to you in your relationships, in your finances, in your health and fitness, in all areas of your life. Apply this to you, right? Now, I say no guy chooses to be fat, but yet he's fat. You say, well, what's that all about? He doesn't deserve to be fat, but he has made the choice to be fat. And he's made the choice to be fat because he chooses all the excuses instead of the behavior necessary not to be fat. There's no one listening to this that couldn't in 5 minutes figure out an exact workout plan and diet plan that fit your age and fitness level and all the other problems that we always claim we have, right? You can find all that between Google and ChatGPT. It gives you all that. So the what to do and how to do is not the problem. The choice not to do it is a freaking problem. And then all the bullshit excuses we make up as to why we can't. We didn't have time. We didn't sleep right. Baby, kids, dogs, spouse, all this other bullshit. Let's just be honest, right? I don't come from a negative spot. I come from a position of I want to be able to help people change who they are, to have the things in life that they want to have, okay? But it does require we take responsibility and take the power back. No guy actively chooses it, but he chooses by default, by not choosing to do the things he knows how to do. So therefore, he deserves what he gets. That's all of us. Listen, I'm 15 pounds over where I want to be right now. I deserve this body because I didn't make the choices to be 15 pounds lighter. That's a choice. Your relationship is no different with your spouse, with your kids. Right? Now, we can't control, no doubt, in relationships. We're not responsible for other people's choices and behaviors. However, we can still do our part. In different relationships, we have different levels of authority and power. Your finances. And let's just call it what it is, right? There's never been a better time in the history of the U.S. where opportunity is pouring out of every freaking corner. It's just true, okay? We don't have any wars that directly affect us, or really even indirectly. Granted, there's a war going on, but it doesn't affect our daily lives. We're not worried about getting recruited into the army. We don't have a deep depression going on. Think about growing up in the 20s and 30s and 40s. A couple world wars, some little wars in between, and a Great Depression. That's a shitty time to grow up. Opportunity. You know, what you thought was opportunistic was finding some bread. It's different today. Yet we still allow ourselves to be controlled by circumstances. How much longer, honest question, fair question, ask yourself, how much longer are you going to continue to choose to accept your current results and outcomes in all areas of your life? I don't want to hear, but Pat, man, I'm physically rock solid. Okay, well, how about the other areas of your life? How are those? Now, there are some people I run into, man, that they get it. They're dialed in, right? And they push in all areas of their life, knowing, man, that every area affects and infects the other areas of their lives. You can never be the best you can be in any one of those if you're dropping the ball in the others, right? And for the point of today's conversation, I'm focusing on living an intentional life versus a circumstantial life. A circumstantial life reacts to what's going on around it. An intentional life picks a desired outcome, a very specific outcome, creates the exact behaviors and actions that are needed to produce those results, and gets at it and does not let circumstances stop them from performing. See the difference here? I'm yet to meet a human soul ever that has reached any level of success in any areas of their lives that lived a circumstantial life. And if there's an area of your life that is underperforming, and that's most of us, mine included, okay? One, admit it. Let's start there. Truth is where all change begins, right? And two, start analyzing it, right? How intentional am I in this part of my life, right? I've shared this with you before. Like at the 10-year mark, my wife and I have been married 30 years last month or May, knock on wood, right? But at 10 years, we ran into some trouble, some deep trouble. We struggled. And it took 2 years of hard, intentional work to recover where we were and get above and beyond it. If I left it up to circumstances, we'd be divorced. Okay? That's how powerful the choice of intention over circumstances is. We will, I'll use the word fail, we will not reach levels of success if we lead a circumstantial life in any areas of our lives. This guy's in my gym, studs, absolute physical specimens. Divorce, can't keep a relationship, kids hate them. Yippee-ki-yay. Congratulations. You're a stud in the gym. Follow me on this? I know other people. When it comes to money, man, they're the most dialed in people there is. There's money coming out of everywhere. And everything they touch turns to money. Same thing. Relationships sucks. They're fat and soft on the outside, right? Likely diabetic. Like, I'd rather be broke and live an intentional life than to be you. Anybody can make money if we do it intentionally, right? Follow me on this? Okay. Now it's kind of a quick call, but the point is, if we let circumstances determine our behavior, we will lose. The flip of that is work. We start with a desired outcome. We create the behaviors and the actions necessary to produce those results. So behavior and action. Action might be, I reduce my eating window down to 7 hours a day and I don't eat before lunch. Okay, good. Behavior might be, I discipline myself to the actions required. Behavior, action. And sometimes behaviors and actions are one and the same. Okay. Pick the end goal, write down the actions that are required, apply the behaviors that are necessary to execute the actions. Okay. If I was to add one more thing, if you want an insurance programmer out, 2 more things. 1, meaning. When we pick goals, outcomes, results that are void of any real meaning, they become a struggle. Then they require discipline and focus and commitment and hard work. However, when it means enough to you, you're doing it. Example, if your hand was on a burner on a stove, let's say it's a gas burner, but the stove's off, right? Right there. And the behavior is you got to move your hand. You're not moving your hand. There's not enough meaning in it to you. You're like, nah, I'm leaving my hand right there. So I turn on the burner. Immediately starts burning your hand. I just added meaning to that equation. You don't need discipline or focus or commitment or work ethic or anything at that point. Because there's enough meaning to move it, you're moving your damn hand, no matter what. That's how powerful meaning is. I know it's a simplistic example, but when it matters enough, I use this other one. This is a little more near and dear. Take care. You're like, well, that's just physical, Pat. All right, you and I are walking down a street, right? And there's a house over on our left that's on fire. We're like, oh, the house is on fire. Right? Put the firemen in there and everything's cool and whatever, burning, whatever. And I go, hey, hey, Wayne, I'll give you $1,000 if you run into that kitchen right now and fill this glass of water. $1,000, brother. And you're like, Pat, that's stupid. $1,000, and that don't mean enough to me. I give you $10,000. You're like, Pat, I risk my life. I'll give you $1 million. Like, Pat, you don't understand. Money doesn't mean enough to put my life on the line. So there's not enough meaning. No matter how disciplined, focused, committed, any of that kind of bullshit, it doesn't mean enough to Wayne to run in and risk his life for that whatever I'm offered to give him. Now, let's say Wayne's got a little daughter, right? Rebecca. Rebecca's 4.5 years old. And we hear Rebecca screaming at the top of her lungs, scared to death. She's inside that house, screaming for Wayne. Things just changed. What went from an impossible doing went to impossible not to do. When you know there's no way little Rebecca is going to survive unless Wayne gets in there and gets him out. Wayne is not going in that house. It doesn't, because now the meaning is greater than the sacrifice. When it means that much to us, we never lose. We will never not execute. Now, there's different levels, gradients of meaning, and the more meaning there is to it, right, the less likely us not to execute. Make sure what you're doing is attached to a bigger meaning, and you're more likely to execute it. If it's greater than any potential cost, you won't not do it. Okay? And that's why some people who had like near-death experience, they had a heart attack, they died on a gurney, and they brought them back to life, and they said, listen, you're this shitty, you're 390 pounds, and if you keep this up, you'll just be back here, but you won't get you back to life. You'll be dead. All the comfort foods and everything just became very uncomfortable because the meaning of life now matters to them. Lifestyle changes like that, right? So that's number one. When you absolutely positively must succeed, add meaning to it. Number two, accountability. Accountability is your insurance program. Accountability is having an outside force, an outside energy leaning into you that is ruthless in its pressure and unwilling to let you fail and has the tools to apply pressure to get you to execute. This matters. And this is why spouses are terrible at accountability, because they're too nice. They care too much. They're unwilling to make somebody really uncomfortable, apply pain to get them to take an action. Right? So if you really need to succeed, build an accountability. Outside force. Newton's second law, I think it was, body in motion tends to stay in motion in a straight line until an opposing force is applied and knocks it off that trajectory. That's what accountability does for you. It's that opposing force to get you out of the same rut, the same process, the same system, the same routines you've been in for so long. That's what an outside force does to you. But when it comes to picking an accountability partner, pick one that is ruthless. You have upfront agreement and you agree on the amount of pressure that they have, the tools they have to work with, and they have to be willing to apply them when you're not performing. This is you saying, you know what? I'm not going to rely on the old me to win. I have to win. I have to succeed. And I'm going to build in the necessary components so that it's no longer just on my shoulders and my decision making. See, we have a pain scale. And when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of perceived change, the perceived pain of change will finally change. And that's where that accountability comes in, cranking up that pain, making it brutally uncomfortable to do the same bullshit behavior that you've done in the past. This is how we force a new outcome. Now, I say this all the time, leadership. You know what leaders' number one role? To create environments conducive to those that they lead, conducive to winning of those that they lead, right? So my job as a leader is to create environments around me that are subjective to you succeeding. That's my role, because my success as a leader is measured in your success. My success is measured in the success of those that I lead. However, we're also responsible for leading ourselves. And this is oftentimes where we do a shitty job. But if you apply that same definition, leading yourself, creating environments conducive to my success, I'm going to make sure I have meaning, and I'm going to make sure I have accountability built in, because those are both environments that are more likely, are conducive, more likely to me succeeding in what I'm going to do. As a matter of fact, I know when they're right, I will not succeed. Boom. Measure yourself. Go through the areas of your life. Identify the areas where you let circumstances, effectively your bullshit excuses about all these other things in life that are happening to you, decide your level of success and make a commitment to change that. I said, no man walks around soft on the outside, but we choose it by default. Therefore, we deserve it. And if you want to deserve something different, stop living circumstantially, start living intentionally. You guys are awesome, man. Been a pleasure as always. If you guys have any questions, comments, you can always DM me from here. Have an amazing week. Peace.